All right, good morning, brothers, sisters, and family. I'm Ameenah Salaam, CWA Secretary-Treasurer, and I'm so excited to be here with so many leaders of CWA this morning. As you've just heard from President Cummings, it's critical now, more than ever, that we stand unified as a union and as a movement. We know that it's a tale as old as time, that the rich and the powerful will try to use every trick in the book to divide us, to pit us against one another, so that we can't fight back effectively as a working class for our rights, for jobs, and for our futures. So it's incredibly important that we unite to build power and ensure that we have a real voice, whether it's on the job or in the hallowed halls of power here in Washington. So we're going to talk about some of the efforts and strategies to do just that on this panel. So I'm delighted to be joined by three outstanding panelists from the organizations who are key partners with CWA, the NAACP, Pride at Work, and CASA. I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves in just a moment, but I just first want to recognize that each of these organizations have had CWA's back, whether it's at the bargaining table, during organizing drives, or political campaigns, or even fighting for pro-worker legislation. The NAACP, Pride at Work, and CASA are there fighting for CWA and our members. So I'd like to now turn it over to our amazing panel. So could you each briefly introduce yourselves, your organizations, and your work with CWA.
So I can start. Hi, everyone. My name is Marvin Hernández. I'm the CASA in Action Electoral Deputy Director. And about CASA, CASA in Action is a membership-led organization, right, with over 122,000 lifetime Latino, Black, immigrants, and working class members across 46 U.S. states. Right? We are very proud to be part of the CWA. CWA has contributed a lot to our electoral programs, right? And we are very proud to be connected with CWA in the work that they do for working families.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tyler Sterling. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the NAACP National Campaigns Director. What that means is I really mobilize and strategize on all of our initiatives and campaigns. Our work with CWA is inextricably tied. NAACP and labor go hand in hand as we're talking about making advancements for the rights of individuals of color. I will say there's multiple times on this panel, but the NAACP is nonpartisan, but we are not blind. We truly know what is at stake this election cycle, and we will be mobilizing, working very closely with CWA on whether that's legislative advocacy reports, whether that is holding CEOs and our elected officials accountable on both sides, so corporate accountability and electoral accountability, but also that mobilizing aspect, getting out the vote, having real conversations about what is at stake. I think President Cummings just spoke to the need to have real conversations. We can do so much around getting out the vote and engaging, but what it comes down to is having a real conversation with someone face-to-face, ideally, about what is at stake this year. So very excited on all the ways that our work overlaps on advocacy, litigation, and mobilization, and ways to advance the world and our equal rights for not only people of color, but all individuals in a working class space.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jerame Davis. I'm the Executive Director of Pride at Work. Pride at Work is the LGBTQIA constituency group of the AFL-CIO. That means we represent LGBTQIA plus union members across the labor movement. We've had a long-standing relationship with CWA. CWA's Shane Larson was previously our co-president for many, many years, yes. I'm also proud to be wearing my CWA red shirt today to represent. But we've had so many campaigns together. For example, back during the Trump administration, we worked on the campaign to stop Andrew Puzder from becoming the labor secretary. It was a great campaign, had a lot of fun. But the most important work that we've done with CWA is the education work that we do to continue to educate our union members and leaders about the importance of addressing LGBTQIA issues in our unions.
Thank you all. So now to be quite plain about it, the biggest legislative accomplishment from the Trump presidency was a giant tax cut for billionaires and for multinational corporations. The thing that was very nearly the second biggest accomplishment, only stopped at the last moment by John McCain, was to take away health care from millions of people. He wants to portray himself as a man of the people, but he does this while largely in part by demonizing communities represented on this stage. Can you all talk about your community, how your community has felt the impact, and what your organizations have done to fight back?
I'll start, sure. LGBTQI people have faced legislative onslaught since Trump opened the floodgates of hate and vitriol. And more than 550 anti-LGBTQIA plus bills have been filed in state legislatures just this year. That's a record, only beating last year's record, which was over 400 anti-LGBTQ pieces of legislation. So to fight back, we've doubled down on educating our union partners about these bills and what they mean for our community. We're a small organization and we need our union partners to get our work done. So putting these issues on the agenda for labor and putting these issues on the agenda of our union members and our union leaders is critically important to our work. And it has worked. You know, many unions have helped educate themselves and their members about the issues, including CWA. I mean, I'm here on stage today talking about these issues to all of you at this important legislative and political conference. But you know, we've had partners from across the labor movement who have really stepped up and engaged with us and are helping us fight back.
I can go next. At the NAACP, and this may potentially seem like a crazy comment, but this election is far bigger than Trump, and we are fighting Trumpism up and down the ballot at every election and every level of the ballot. And so what that really means to me, I'll focus in on one particular issue, and that is suppressing the right to vote. Historically, we know the struggles, and particularly in communities of color, on advancing to get the right to vote. What is happening up and down the ballot currently is not only election denial, but a true denial of our right to express our voice. And we are seeing that everywhere, whether that is at the federal level where we cannot seem to get full voting rights legislation pushed through, or whether that is at the local level where we're seeing a myriad of bills back to basically poll taxes coming up to us at our local level. And so at the NAACP, we look at this in a three-pronged approach of advocacy, so holding both our elected officials, those power brokers accountable, the litigation pieces. NAACP will sue you. We will come right for you. That is not a joke. We will hold you up in litigation. We have to fight it on all fronts. And then there's the mobilization, and that is why we are here today, to break bread, to be together, to think about the tactics and strategies that we need to use to mobilize in community. So we look at it at a three-pronged approach, but it is not just Trump, it is Trumpism. It is things that are happening at your county executive level, things that are happening at the state house level, those elections that don't seem to get the attention or the eyes on them, but they are more important to many individuals than who your US Senator is, than who the president is. So we are trying to fight back not only Trump, but Trumpism, his acolytes and cronies that are carrying his message from up and down the ballot.
Yeah, of course, our community felt the impact of that, and we didn't stop there, right? We did what we do best, organize, right? We organize and we focus on local and state level legislations, right? State level campaigns, right? That led us to important victories For instance, in Maryland, we passed the, sorry, I forgot the name of this, the Healthy Baby Care Act, right, which opened up for immigrants, pregnant women, right, to have access to Medicaid, right? We also passes the Access to Care Act, right, that opened up for affordable care for everyone, regardless their immigrant status, right? So we feel very proud of this. We also expand Medicaid in Virginia, and we were working on a couple of initiatives in Georgia and PA as well. So we didn't stop there. We continue fighting. We continue fighting back, right, for our right, for our working families' right, and for our immigrant community.
Great. Thank you. So many of Trump's tactics that you all have just talked about in terms of targeting the most vulnerable in order to protect those at the very top is a pretty reminiscent tactic of CEOs that they use to maintain power. So can you talk about how corporate executives attacks in the most vulnerable in order to protect their own power?
I can go first. So the NAACP and CWA actually produced a legislative, an advocacy report on facing on a specific government contractor. And so this government contractor had really horrible practices when we're just putting it like that. There are a number of things to focus on. Representation. So when we're talking about representation, we were looking at an organization that had roughly 78, 80% individuals of women of color on the frontline force, but when you look at the executive staff, there was 5% of that was representative of women of color. And so representation is a key point there. When we're thinking about access to information, creating clear pathways for advancement in careers, this entity did not necessarily have clear pathways to find out about job postings, clear pathways for metrics for assessment to then get those pay raises. These are things that are happening both in the legislative advocacy space, but certainly in the corporate world when we think about access to information, access to progress. And so these tactics are happening at the corporate level as well as the legislative level. An additional piece I think that I'd like to touch on is really that just going back to that representation. So having representation that looks like you in the decision-making rooms goes a long way. And so we see those attacks happening, access to information, representation, clear and affordable healthcare. All of these things are barriers to having a successful employment status. And we just see it happening at so many different levels that it is almost mirroring what is happening on Capitol Hill, that it's happening in the corporate boardrooms and further down into our workrooms.
Sure. You know, when I think about the reaction and the power of CEOs and how they attack workers, I think about my own story. I was one of 3 men fired for being gay. It was 25 years ago in the state of Indiana. And, you know, we had no protections then whatsoever. But it was Pride at Work and the labor movement that stepped up and helped us fight back. And, you know, we didn't take it lying down. We weren't union members, so of course the labor movement didn't have to help us. But because they did, we won a fight that couldn't be won. We actually got the company to settle. And when they did, we became the first LGBTQIA discrimination case in the state of Indiana settled for a monetary award. It was truly amazing.
Yes, I would like to talk about this experience that I had when I was working in the labor movement as an organizer, union organizer, and I saw a company hiring and paying millions of dollars, right, to a firm to avoid people fighting for a fair contract, right? Fortunately, we won that campaign, right? And we had seen that corporate prefer to pay a lot of money to those corporations, to those law firms, to take the power of the people, right, out of the table. So that's why we understand that it's the same. The same system wants to keep us out of the power, out of the table, out of the negotiation. But we have to continue, right, reminding our people the power that they have, right, on the elections, the power that they have at their workplace. So we have to continue reminding them, because sometimes we got so busy that we forgot those essential things.
Right. So it seems like sometimes politicians use the same tactics to try to divide the working class and to suppress our political power in the same sorts of ways that companies will try to do and block organizing drives and cause a rift within the bargaining unit by targeting vulnerable people in the workforce there. What's the relationship between the attacks on the rights in the workplace and the attacks on our rights coming out of DC? Jerame?
Sure. They're all part of the same plan. Right now, control of Congress is split, and try as they might, those who would attack us can't get much done. But don't be fooled. They are trying. Just this year, Republicans in the House have attempted to insert anti-LGBTQIA riders into must-pass legislation like budget bills and the Defense Authorization Bill. Thankfully, the Democratic-controlled Senate has, or will, strip most of those provisions away. But that hasn't stopped the Supreme Court from rolling back rights and making it easier for legislatures in the states to roll back our rights. Just look at abortion, for example. 2 years ago, the Dobbs decision eliminated Roe v. Wade, and now 14 states have total abortion bans, while many others have restricted abortion to just a few weeks. I cannot stress enough how important this election is for all of us, but particularly for women, people of color, LGBTQIA people, and immigrants. An unfettered Trump and GOP would run roughshod over our rights.
So the relationship mirror one another, right? There's some time when the politicians put us in sometimes they put us in our communities against each other instead of bringing us together, right? They sometimes put us on choosing instead of healthcare for immigrants, pay leave, or criminal justice reform, right? But the reality is that we don't have to choose. We should have all of them all.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Mirroring what both of these gentlemen have said, it is a systemic erosion of rights both in the workplace and in our everyday lives. So when we're thinking about the workplace, trying to end the right to organize, trying to end our right to demand for fair wages, trying to end our right for safety, for safe work conditions. I think similarly what is happening in legislation, it is voter suppression, trying to silence our voices, environmental regulations that are only impacting or benefiting those at the top, but purely resulting in damages to us in community. And then there's the social safety nets being dismantled. So I think about it in these aspects are all mirroring what is happening in DC, but also what these tactics are. And so really the common thread is just maintaining wealth among a select few. No matter how we look at it historically, it is about maintaining wealth among a select few and not allowing access to progress for anyone else.
Great. Now, I'm sure it's evident to many of the folks here, but could you discuss how this sort of targeting of vulnerable communities harms workers, regardless of whether or not they themselves are members within those communities?
They're not going to stop at erasing the identities of LGBTQIA people. They're not going to stop at banning abortion. They're not going to stop at making it harder for immigrants to live and thrive. They're going to keep going, keep coming after every group that doesn't align with their worldview. This is a vicious movement that is out to remake America in its image, and we're just the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, it's powerful. Building off of that, lowering quality of our working conditions, just at one point, is setting a bad precedent. It sets a bad precedent and opens up the opportunity for negative rollbacks all over the board. Two, the gentleman's point over here, it pits us against each other. It is trying to create a division amongst us, and we are seeing divisiveness at so many different levels right now. I mean, there's popular culture division, there is political division, there is racial tension and divides. It is truly trying to pit individuals against each other. I think another thing is, to that setting a bad precedent, these anti-worker laws and practices are just being shopped around. If it works one place and gets passed, you can best believe a state legislature is trying to pass that same exact thing in a different area. So really these laws are being shopped around. So it's kind of a, they may not be coming for you yet type of thing.
Yeah, I can speak about how targeting immigrants in particular harm our workforce, right? Targeting our immigrant community, right, and marginalizing them, right, harm the entire workforce, right? Because workers, regardless their status, they will be scared of speaking up against unfair labor practices that make worker exploitation easier. So we had to avoid that. We had to continue, right, with reminding our workers, right, the power that they have, right, on the table, and also our voters, right, the power that they have, right, to change elections.
Awesome, awesome. So obviously we have a big challenge in front of us. Depending on how this election goes, our communities could once again be under attack. So what are your organizations doing to protect us, our rights, and our democracy?
I can go first. So again, NAACP is nonpartisan, but we are not blind. We are organizing at all levels of the ballot. What that means is both some of those large-scale communication aspects, so radio, mail, digital, those things are needed by all means. We all know it takes, roughly 7 or so touches to penetrate the psyche or to get into someone's mindset. So we do need to explore all opportunities and ways to engage around the vote. But what I think we are most excited and proud about is our local community organizing. And what we do, we have a relational organizing program. And so first you start out with your friends and family. You think of any movement, any religion, any big, large-scale movement has started with your friends and family. We ask you to reach out to them, but we ask you to take it one step further and sign up to volunteer to get a list of 20, 30 names of individuals that are in your community. So you sign up to volunteer, you will get a list of 20 or 30 names. They will be within the same age of the census tract of you. They will be within about a 5-mile radius of you, and they will be the same identified gender within the voting rolls. So that would be, ideally, you've got some type of lived experience. So you start with your family, then you expand out beyond that and having those conversations. And those are really, when we're talking with our volunteers and our members, they love to see digital ads. God willing, we can raise enough money, go up on TV. They love to see TV ads. But when we're having those one-to-one conversations, what really makes the difference is someone being able to say, I had a conversation with someone, they weren't necessarily saying that they were going to vote, but after the conversation with me, they seemed likely that they would engage. And those are the conversations and the aspects that move the needle. We've got all of the targeting, all of the data to tell you. That's another thing in itself when we're talking about black voters. This erosion or immersion of the soccer moms, the hockey dads. There are all these breakdowns of other demographics of voters, but when we're talking about black community, we get lumped into a monolith. We get lumped into a monolith, and we're communities of color as a whole. We get lumped into a monolith, and we talk to, at the final couple of days of the election, hey, go turn out. We know how you're going to show up. We've got to change that and have real conversations about persuasion, real conversations about showing up to vote. And so what we are, I think, most excited about, beyond all of the flashy stuff, the 100 days out events, Michelle Obama coming. Michelle Obama is not going to move a low propensity voter. I would just say I absolutely love Michelle Obama, but if I'm not voting, then is she really going to be the mover? Each and every one of you are going to be the movers to those average everyday voters about why it's important to show up to vote.
I can remember. Oh Lord, this is the busiest season for CASA in Action, right? So in our electoral programs, for the primary, recently we knock on 60,000 doors, right? 25,000 in Pennsylvania, 25,000 in Georgia, and 10,000 in Virginia, right? And so we were running this program. This was about voting by mail program that we run in these 3 states. And we were targeting the Black and brown communities in all these 3 states, right? In Georgia specifically, it's harder for the voter to vote by mail, right? And every time to vote is harder and harder for them, right? Here in Maryland, we can compare that if you want to request your mail-in ballot, you can sign up just on a click, by clicking your computer, right? The mouse, and you will be signed up for requesting the mail-in ballot on every election, and you will receive it. In Georgia, there's a lot of steps that you have to do, right? You have to print out the form, right? You have to take a picture of it, and you have to email it to the county. So many steps for the people to request the mail-in ballot. But our team was there helping them, showing them how to do it, and we collected a lot of stories, and people were very grateful that our team was there helping them because they were getting ready as well to request the mail-in ballot for the general election. Because you know what? People in Georgia, when they sign up, they only sign up for one election at a time. They won't receive the ballot for the general as well. They had to do the same step that they took, right, again for the next election. Wow. And so we were targeting people with a propensity voter score 0 to 40. So that means people that they don't usually go to vote, right? And we were activating them and encouraging them to get to the polls in these important elections. In PA, right, during the primary, we run a 1-month program, and we collected almost 650 voter registrations. Now we are running the general program, right, and we expect to collect 5,500 voter registration by October 21st. Before election day, during October the 22nd until election day, we plan to go back to the houses of those people that we had registered to remind them that there is an important election and to get to the polls and vote for the presidential election and also the ballot races.
Awesome. That's awesome. You, Jerame?
So the only way to stop these attacks is at the ballot box. So we're engaging with the election like we never have before. You know, right now in June, it's Pride Month, and we have our members out there registering voters at Pride events all over the country. And then as we go into the fall, we'll be knocking on doors, we'll be sending text messages, we'll be making phone calls to get out the vote. Of course, we're also continuing to educate our union partners about the issues in this election that are important to us and how we can engage with them and partner with them on electoral issues. And finally, we are preparing for the possibility of a second Trump term. As much as we're going to fight to make sure that doesn't happen, we do need a contingency plan, and so we're working on what we're going to do if that should happen.
Awesome. Great to hear that you're being proactive. So you all have a sort of captive audience. Everybody get on the doors right here. So what would be your recommendations for best ways that people in this room can fight back against these attempts to divide us and undermine our movement building?
Stay involved with your union, right? The labor movement is built on solidarity. And the only way that we win is by being united. The folks who are trying to strip away our rights are united, and we should be too.
I would say continue to build cross-community alliance So we are brother and sister in struggle, right? Do not get disregarded. You don't see any movement at the federal level, right? We have to focus on local level and state levels campaigns, right? Which is where we can make a bigger impact.
Right. Yeah. Awesome.
Building off of that, I would say take the 20, 30 minutes to educate yourself about the local candidates. Having those, and I don't mean pre-canned or preset talking points, take the 20, 30 minutes to read the website, see the about you, find what matters to you about that candidate, that issue showing up. When we make our advocacy and we do our electoral work, we never endorse a specific candidate, but I push our lawyers as far as I can on the C4 side without saying someone's name about what is at stake this year. And so educate yourself about what's on the issues. Again, you are going to be the best walking billboard for why it is important to show up and get involved in this election cycle. And at a certain point, when some people hear Trump or Biden, their eyes glaze over. But if you talk to them about what is happening at your local school board, what is happening at your local state legislature, whether that is access to the right to vote, whether that is LGBTQIA rights issues, whether that is gender affirming care within that space. These are all things that are happening in local communities. And so by educating yourself on what is at stake, then you become just the best person to pivot point and to talk to about what can be going on. Again, we can spend millions, and we will spend millions of dollars on research and the right scripts, the right radio ads, whether that's in like Pandora, Spotify, terrestrial radio, Twitch for some of our gamers, streaming, all of those spaces, meeting people where they're at. But at the end of the day, I think what people will remember most is, oh, I had that one interaction. A couple days before Election Day, they see a TV ad or something, they remember, oh, while I was out in a high traffic area, someone handed me this flyer and I had a 45-second conversation about what it meant to that person about showing up to vote. That, paired with all of the work that we are doing on this stage and all of the work that you are doing, those are drops in the bucket. We can't, we can't understate the value of having these conversations because it's all drops in the bucket. If we are all united as one in having this front around educating and why it is important to show up to vote, one of our touch points is going to work. One of them is going to work. So we've got to stay the course, stay in your lane within that. If you're not comfortable having those conversations, then maybe you're someone who needs to help on like kind of the volunteer comfort side. I'm really in the volunteer space of, okay, I don't want to make phone calls, but I make a mean chili, I'll bring the chili to the phone bank. Like, you find your space to get involved because there's a space for everyone. And if we all play our role, I think when we wake up November 6th, I think we will be pleased that we've done everything that we could do.
Well, thank you all for those really interesting and thoughtful remarks. I know this gives us a lot to think about and a lot of things that we can all act on. If there's one thing that's clear from this panel, there's a lot of powerful interests who are working to divide us. But if we unify and mobilize in the ways that we've all discussed and that we're all planning, we all can win. Thank you, guys.